so good.
If you'd have been there, if you'd have seen
You can see and hear this live
you would have done the same.
at the Gaiety Theatre from the 7th to the 15th of February. Very exciting. And I'm joined by not just two of the Merry Murderesses who we're going to chat to in a moment, but also Jude Fullerton, who does pretty much everything else. Jude, it's lovely to have you back in the studio, representing Douglas Choral Union. I mean, you have many hats when you do these productions. But one of the things we were talking about in the background before you came on, Chicago, a lot of people know it for the dancing, for the music, for Bob Fosse. I hadn't realised until you told me a lot of this is based on real life stories, and considering it's about murderous women, I mean that's something, that is, isn't it? Tell us a bit of the background.
Yeah, it's really a lot of people don't know or realize that in Chicago in the 1920s, everything was a bit of a mess. There was no law, there was prohibition, and during that time also, women weren't in the jury. So there was around 102 women that were accused of killing their husbands, and of the 102, only about 12 got convicted, and mainly because they presented themselves quite attractively in the court, and the jury just couldn't believe that women would actually kill their husbands or lovers, or they were capable of doing it, especially if the women were attractive. So the story of Roxy and Velma is actually, a true life story. It's not totally right, but in lots of respects, with Roxy, for example, her defense was they both reached for the gun, so the song Reach for the Gun was based on that, and also sort of like her fake pregnancy. Those were all real things that actually happened, and they got away with it.
And one of the reasons we know this is because actually Chicago itself was written by one of the reporters that reported on those crimes at the time.
Yes, she was actually really disgusted with the fact that these women could get away with it. And so she wrote the play to sort of like highlight to everybody the injustice of the system and the fact that like all of a sudden people were being celebrities for no reason. So if you think about it, it's a really like Big Brother started anew, because these people were famous for killing people, they're nothing to do with that. And she wanted to bring that injustice to light, and she had the play. And actually Bob Fosse went to watch the play with his wife, and they tried to get the rights to make it into a musical, but she refused because she didn't want them to benefit from it. It was only when she died that her family released the rights to Bob Fosse, and he made it into a musical.
And we think actually she probably would have been quite happy with the way he did it, because I mean he pulls no punches with it, does he?
Yeah, he was quite real to it, and because I think they tried to do it in Hollywood and they made a film, but they had to knock all the things out because it's quite a lot of murder, crime, and plus it's quite a sexy show. So they couldn't sort of like, in the 50s, they couldn't sort of like put all that in film. So, it was kind of like sanitized a little bit.
Well, see, now, if you're going to go, which I hope you all are, a bit of the backstory to it. And we've been talking about these Merry Murderesses, talking about Velma and Roxy. We've actually got our own Velma and Roxy in the studio with us, because Jordan and Evie are here. Jordan, you are playing Velma. Did you know all about this background before you took this role on?
Actually, I didn't. I didn't know the scope of it. I knew it was based on a play that was then turned into a musical, but I didn't know it was actually based on real people until Jude filled me in on a lot of the background, actually. Yeah, it's really interesting.
So does it kind of add something to when you're performing, because you think, actually, I'm kind of representing someone here, or certainly an era?
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, it's not the exact story, so it's like more dramatic than it usually is, but yeah, it's good to keep in mind, when you're playing the scenes, and because they are real people, you drive real emotion into different areas of the story.
And I think the last time I saw you on the stage was when you were playing Kaniki. Not Kaniki. Oh, I always do that. Rizzo and Kaniki.
Yeah.
Rizzo and Kaniki have got those sort of names, haven't they? Sound like nicknames. Yeah. Rizzo, obviously, in Greece, which was an amazing thing. But when did you first sort of come into theatre on the Isle of Man?
I think I was about 10 or 11 when we did Bugsy Malone. About 2011. Yeah, so I was kind of fresh-faced and never stepped foot on stage in my life. So, yeah, it's very interesting when you go on the stage for the first time, because it looks one way when you're looking at the stage, but it's completely different when all the lights and everything are on you. So for an 11-year-old, it was a bit of a big shock. And
to think now you're playing one of the lead roles in what is one of the favourite musicals of all time. I mean, that must feel amazing.
Oh, yeah. Chicago's been one of my dream shows anyway. Like, whoever's spoken to me about my dream shows the last few years, I've always said Chicago. So, yeah. it's dream come true.
I bet it is. And we've got Evie with us as well, who is playing, I mean, Roxy is just one of those parts, Evie, isn't it?
Oh, she is. She has been my dream role forever, honestly. So it's such a dream come true to be able to like bring her to life.
And how have you very much made her your own, or have you been quite kind of strict to actually playing her the way that she's written?
I feel like I've tried different methods. I've watched different videos of the way that she's been portrayed on Broadway, or different people have kind of brought a different feel to her. But I think I've very much tried to make her my own and bring aspects of myself to her, which sounds weird when I'm talking about.
Don't worry,
being
you've not killed anyone.
But
Have you? No, I don't think so.
No, I think I've very much tried to make bits of my own humour into the lines and infiltrate myself into her a little bit.
She's been played by so many iconic people as well, hasn't she?
Definitely, yeah. And there's obviously been a very different age range in every person that's played her as well. I've seen people up all the way up until like their 50s or 60s playing Roxy and Velma. And then, I mean, I'm 19, but there's been a very different gap of age range. But I think that's great.
It is great, and I have to say I'm really looking forward to this. Well, listen, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk to you again in a few moments, but I thought we'd put on a song. And because we haven't had you two on 1 to 3 before, I thought we'd let you two decide. And there's a particular artist that you do both like, isn't there? Yeah, so we're going to have some Sabrina Carpenter. Which one of you wants to introduce the song then?
Oh, I'll let Evie do it.
Go on then, Evie. What have we got next?
This is Please, Please, Please by Sabrina Carpenter.
Beautiful.
Give 'em the old razzle-dazzle, razzle-dazzle 'em. Give 'em an act with lots of flash in it, and the reaction will be passionate. Give 'em the old...
That's right, we're giving them the old razzle-dazzle. We're talking all about Chicago on the programme today. We've got Jude Fullerton from DCU. We've also got two of the lead stars. Of course, we've got Jordan and Evie with us, who are playing Velma and Roxy as well. Jude, we've talked quite a bit about the kind of background of the show. One of the things about Chicago, of course, that everyone knows is Bob Fosse's link with it. Of course, the incredible choreographer. And I should say, if you've not yet seen Fosse in Verdun, which I think is still available to view, do go watch it because it is fascinating. But it's a bit complicated when you do a production like this, isn't it, if it is still running? So you've had to kind of jump through hoops to make this production happen, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. The license, we were only allowed to do the license as long as we didn't copy any of the Broadway or West End versions. So the sets we've all had to make ourselves, and we had our own designer locally, Emily Corkill, so she designed the sets for us, and we've had people beavering around making and painting stuff. The costumes we couldn't follow either, so we decided to go back to the 1920s, so everything is the kind of like 1920s style with a little bit of a modern touch, but just so that we could have that. And also the dancing couldn't be the same, so our choreographer is Brisha Kruko, again a local girl, but she's obviously at the minute engaged in sort of like working in cruise ships, so she's busy, but she came and she blocked the whole thing, the whole choreography for us, and she had her own style. We couldn't copy the choreography, but she still has elements of the Bob Fosse style in her choreography.
And I think, Jordan, you've worked with Brisha before, haven't you? So it must be really lovely having that kind of connection with the person who's working with you.
Yeah, I mean, me and Brie have been friends since we were kids, to be fair. But she did the choreography on Grease as well, which is the first time that she did the numbers. And we were like, oh, no, this is going to be very challenging. So, yeah, she likes to push the people that she's working with, which is great for, someone who's doing this. But, yeah, it's very hard.
And as Jude said, the women in this production, it's sexy, it's confident, it's powerful. I mean, Evie, it must be so much fun to play, kind of dragging out this inner confidence, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely love it. I think both of our roles are definitely someone you can really throw yourself into and have a bit of fun and just play around. I feel like that's so important, playing a character that you have like freedom to do what you'd want. And I feel like David Dawson has given us a really good opportunity to kind of really put our own spin on things and just have fun with putting ourselves into our characters.
Who is the director? And he's going to be on Spotlight actually next week, so do listen into that one. I mean, the other thing I think about it, Jordan, and there's a lovely video that's been posted to the Facebook page, DCU's Facebook page, of all of the female kind of characters talking about what it's like working together. Yeah. It sounds like you have a wonderful camaraderie.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot of people that knew each other already before the casts kind of came together. but we've kind of just gelled as a cast. It doesn't matter if you're a principal or a murderess or even like the ensemble or the dancers. Everyone's kind of come together and they're so like supportive of each other. So even when we're doing full runs down at Onchan in the Onchan Parish Hall, we're kind of all, we'll clap for each other and we'll sort of say, oh, well done, that was really good. Or, you know, it's really helpful to have that support network behind you.
That must be so tricky though. And you just mentioned kind of rehearsing at Onchan. When you're not actually rehearsing in the space of the Gaiety Theatre and you've got to sort of memorise blocking and where you're going to be, but it's an entirely different space. How do you do that, Evie?
I think it's quite difficult, but obviously in Tech Week we get to perform and rehearse with the set and adjust ourselves a bit more, but we do help with setting up like our boundary of what's the side and what's the end, so we know where we're going a bit, and we know that there's stairs here because we've put a chair there, or we know that this is a balcony because there's 2 chairs there, so we know a bit what we're doing. It's just obviously figuring out time and everything. Once we get into the theatre, it's a bit different, but it is good fun.
Do you know what? It does look like great fun. I've got to say, though, props to you all, because you put in so much effort on these productions and it's an enormous amount of time rehearsing and pulling it all together. It is clearly going to be a brilliant one. This is going to be so 7th to the 15th of February. Get your tickets. It's really busy already, isn't it, Jude?
Yes, that's right. We've opened the amphitheatre for the first weekend, so get your tickets while you can before it gets all sold out and you can't get any tickets.
No. Well, I tell you what you can do. You can try and win some tickets here on 1 to 3 now. Jordan, can you remember the question I asked you?
Oh, God. No.
Okay. Do you remember it, Evie?
Who was the person that directed?
Choreographer and director of the original production.
That's it. Go again. Say it again so they can hear you.
Oh, who was the famous choreographer and director of the original production of Chicago?
Well done. We've mentioned his name a couple of times. Hopefully you were listening. So if you want to win tickets to the opening night, I mean, that's such a good prize. 166177 or email studio@manxradio.com. Who was that choreographer and director? You know it. You were listening. I know you were. In the meantime, I always hate saying break a leg, especially when you've got dance routines, but it's what I have to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, all right, break a leg. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a brilliant show.
Manx Radio's 1 to 3, tended by Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week.